They said she wasn't capable. They said she wasn't strong enough, smart enough, or talented enough to stand where others stood. They didn't say it to her face, of course. They whispered it in the corners, rolled their eyes when she entered a room, or worse, pretended not to notice her at all. But that was their mistake. Because one day, the janitor's daughter, the girl they overlooked, would force the world to look, and none of them would ever forget it. Her name was Alina. She was small, fragile-looking, and had been born with a slight limp in her left leg. The limp wasn't severe, but in a school where athletics and appearances meant everything, it was enough to separate her from the others. Her father, Farid, worked as the school janitor, often seen pushing his mop down the hallways long after the classrooms emptied. To the students, he was invisible. To Alina, he was everything: her strength, her quiet pride, her reminder that no job was too small if done with dignity. From the first day, she knew she didn't belong in their eyes. The other girls wore brand new uniforms, carried shiny bags, and spoke with the casual arrogance of children raised to believe the world owed them. Alina walked in with hand-me-down shoes, her books tucked in a faded satchel her father had stitched together. And the limp, always the limp, was the first thing they noticed. She was the janitor's daughter, and that was the only label anyone seemed to give her. But what they didn't know was that Alina carried something they could never imagine, a fire burning quietly inside her. It started with music. Farid, though uneducated, loved melodies. He often whistled old folk songs while sweeping the gym or hummed soft tunes when fixing broken windows. At night, when their small apartment echoed with silence, he would take out a battered old keyboard, its keys yellowed with age, and let his fingers dance clumsily across them. Alina, barely 7 at the time, would sit cross-legged beside him, eyes wide, listening. "Papa, teach me," she whispered one night. His calloused hands froze mid-note. "It's broken, Alina. These keys don't even work properly." "I don't care," she smiled. "If you can make music with it, I can too." That was how it began: clumsy fingers, missed notes, and hours of stubborn practice. Over the years, her limp faded into the background when she sat at the keyboard. Her world was not the classroom where they mocked her, nor the playground where she was always the last picked. Her world was music, where no one cared how she walked, only how she played. By the time she turned 15, her talent was undeniable. But still, nobody noticed. At school, when the annual talent competition was announced, excitement buzzed everywhere. The children of wealthy families were already preparing grand performances, dance routines with expensive costumes, dramatic poetry recitals, and instrumentals with teachers hired as private coaches. Alina sat quietly, her heart pounding. She wanted to compete, but the whispers started immediately when she signed her name on the list. What's she going to do, trip on stage? One girl laughed. "She can barely walk straight." "Who's she kidding?" Another chimed in. The sting was sharp, but she didn't back down. She went home, hugged her father, and said, "Papa, I'm going to play." He looked at her long, searching, almost afraid for her. "They'll be cruel, Alina." "Then let them," she replied firmly. "I won't play for them. I'll play for me, and for you." For weeks, their small apartment transformed into a stage. Farid polished the broken keyboard every night as if it were made of gold. Alina practiced until her fingers ached, pouring her soul into each note. She didn't have fancy teachers or shiny instruments, but she had something stronger. She had resilience. The day of the competition arrived. The auditorium glowed with bright lights, filled with polished faces and proud parents seated in the front row. Farid stood in the very back, dressed in his faded uniform, holding the mop he hadn't had time to put away. He looked out of place among the suits and silk dresses, but his eyes never left the stage. One by one, the students performed. Loud applause followed each act, but it was polite applause, the kind given out of courtesy, not awe. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Alina's name was called. A hush fell over the room. Some giggled softly, expecting embarrassment. Some looked away, unwilling to watch what they assumed would be failure. But Alina walked onto the stage with quiet dignity, her limp noticeable but her back straight, her hands steady. She sat at the old keyboard, the one the school had borrowed from the music room, ironically the same model her father had salvaged years ago. Taking a deep breath, she placed her fingers on the keys. For a moment, silence pressed in from all sides. And then she played. The first notes were soft, delicate, like whispers. But soon, they grew, rich, powerful, rising like waves crashing against stone. She poured into the music every tear she had shed, every insult she had endured, every lonely night spent wishing she belonged. The melody was not perfect, a key or two rang faintly out of tune. But the emotion, the raw, undeniable emotion, wrapped itself around the audience like fire. People stopped whispering, parents leaned forward, teachers froze mid-breath, even the students who had mocked her felt something shift deep inside as the janitor's daughter transformed before their eyes. Farid, standing in the back, felt tears blur his vision. He had always known she was special, but in that moment, the whole world finally saw it too. When the last note hung in the air, there was no polite applause. There was silence, a silence heavy with awe, before the auditorium erupted into thunderous clapping. Some even stood. For the first time, Alina wasn't invisible. She wasn't the girl with the limp. She wasn't the janitor's daughter. She was the girl who made them feel something they had forgotten, the beauty of resilience, of courage, of unshakable spirit. Later that night, as she walked off stage, one of the girls who used to laugh at her whispered, "I'm sorry." But Alina didn't stop. She didn't need their apology. She had already won. Farid met her at the edge of the stage, his mop still in hand, his uniform wrinkled, his eyes brimming with pride. He placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just play, Alina," he said softly. "You made them see. You made them all see." And indeed, she had. Because in a world quick to label, quick to dismiss, and quick to ignore, one janitor's daughter proved that limitations are nothing more than illusions. Illusions shattered the moment you dare to rise above them.